That sharing and promoting of each other is really important. I mean, on the Fleurieu Peninsula where we are, I'm very aware that for my little business to be successful, my town needs to be successful. For my town to be successful, then the region needs to be successful. For the region, the state. And then for state to be successful, the whole country has to be successful. So I'm very aware of how we all need to work together to be all successful. And I think that's really important to recognise.
Thank you so much for joining me, Luke, in our next episode of Be The Drop.
Fantastic. Happy to be here.
We've got a cracker day here down at Port Elliot.
Yep.
Which I think connects us very much to your item of significance, which you've got here. Would you like to get us started by explaining what it is and how it connects you with your community?
Yeah, sure. So obviously over here, I've got my surfboard. For me and my business, my community, I've tried to always find an intersection between business and adventure. I wanted to create a business that I was passionate about, and that is surfing. So we launched a surf school way back in 2001, and it connects me with, I guess, the community around here and around the world, and yeah, it relates directly to my business.
Fantastic. So, you know, I think many people would go, yeah, surfing, I want to work surfing. How do you go about building a business from something that's, you know, really is a pleasure, something you do because you love surfing, as you said? How do you then go, right, well, I can turn this into a business and at the same time not lose the pleasure in the surfing?
Well, I mean, that was a struggle for a little while, because when you're in the water all the time, especially in the initial years when I was coaching a lot, you get waterlogged. And so, you know, you don't surf as much as you did when you were not coaching all the time. But then it's about finding the balance. So yeah, I guess, you know, I started it because I loved it and the joy it gave me, and it was great to be able to then share that joy with other people.
Fantastic. And you have also built other businesses around that. Can you explain a little bit what's happened since starting that initial business?
For the first 2 years after that, we would pack up all of the gear with 2 vehicles, drive to Exmouth on Ningaloo Reef in Western Australia, and run surf lessons and kayak tours up there. Right. And then come back here for the summer. So we had a motto of chase the sun, which is what we were doing, and having sort of endless summer between northwest Western Australia and back here. And then over those years after this, we ended up, what did we do? We had an online travel agent doing, snow and surf travel company up in the city, doing surf holidays and snow holidays. We started Kangaroo Island tours where we'd have 2 buses going to Kangaroo Island every day with backpackers. We did a restaurant over on Kangaroo Island, a backpacker hostel, a cabin park over there, and came back and we did walking tours on the Heysen Trail, online travel agent. And in the middle of that, we also started Beyond the Boardroom, which is our other main brand, doing team building activities. So we started that in 2005. So there's been a big, long journey, and we've started, I think 15 years in, we had 15 brands, which is crazy. And you know, I've sold off a fair few of the businesses now. We're just focusing on the core ones, which is the surf school, which has some subsidiary brands, and Beyond the Boardroom, which has some subsidiaries. Yeah.
I'm slightly overwhelmed just listening. I run one business and I think that's enough. Yeah. You're talking about 15 at one point. Yeah. That's overwhelming. How do you manage that many different businesses?
Well, I wouldn't say they're all businesses, they're all different brands. So the way I looked at our business was, if you imagine you've got a chipboard in the middle and you've got different veneers on the outside, so the different brands with the different veneers, and they would bring in different customers to our business. So for example, we had Surf and Sun would be our surf school, would bring in, I guess, weekend learn to surf people and things like that in the holidays, and kids and families. And then we created Beyond the Classroom, which would bring in school groups. So Beyond the Classroom was specialising in the school market, and then Surf and Sun would specialise in the weekend and holiday market. So it's still the same product offering, but just different brands to appeal to the different markets.
Great. But then with, you know, if you're talking about restaurants, cabins, so some of them would have been different businesses.
So they were, but say when we had our Kangaroo Island tour company, we needed somewhere to house them, and we needed somewhere to feed them. And so then we basically tried to do a bit of a vertical line of we can then supply our own food, do our own accommodation, and we had a bit more control in the product quality. And so that was the main reason for doing that.
And so, but those sorts of things, as you say, you've sold off some of those and you've gone to focusing on the core business, but with different brand subsets.
Correct.
To target different markets.
Correct. Yeah.
So what, and what is the benefit of that to your business then?
I guess now it's seasonality, and school groups want to go weekdays, term time, those sorts of things, whereas the surf school customers want to go on the weekends and holidays. So it means we can attract customers through a longer, all week, all year round, I guess. But in starting the team building activities, that was more getting groups. A group was going to come whether or not the weather's bad or not. And so once we got those group bookings, and that was a real launching pad for us. Yeah.
And so with Beyond the Boardroom, is it just with the surfing, or are they doing other activities
No,
included
so
in that?
pretty well Beyond the Boardroom is totally separate now to the surf school, but we do cross over some staff in our office. So that's more, team building activities all over Australia. So we run in every state of the country. We did our first job in New Zealand last October, and then we've got a job in 3 weeks in Tokyo as well. So we've got a dream to go to 100 cities around the world. We're on, launching out to start doing that. But the team building activities will do things like Adelaide's Amazing Race, or Amazing Races in all the cities, survivor style programs with problem solving. We would do a lot of CSR is our main focus, which is that corporate social responsibility. So we're trying to do activities which have purpose, they're challenging and they're fun. And a lot of the purpose, for example, we might do an activity called Bike Brigade, where we'll do challenges to get parts of little kids' push bikes, and then people have to build the bikes, and then they get donated off to charities at the end of the day. Yeah, mate, we've found that social impact is really important in our marketing.
Just talking with you, you're obviously got lots of ideas going on, and the dream is the 100 cities, you think big. Yeah. And how important do you think that is in building business?
Until about 5 years ago, I was really chasing rabbits everywhere. And when you chase too many rabbits, you don't catch any. So after realising that, and I must say my accountant called me the 80% man. He said I would get something to 80% and then I would just get bored and go and chase the next shiny object. And so I've really learned from that, and that's why we sold off many of our brands and just tried to focus on the surf school and the team building, which probably long term is still too many. But that was something that I needed to learn. And then having that big vision and gets the team rallied, and it really inspires you to keep pushing forward. So at least you know where you're going. Yeah.
So, there's two things there, that the business learnings, what's that process been like for you?
Yeah, I've learned a lot over the last nearly 17 years of having my own business. And you have to remember, I started when I was 23. And before that, I was just traveling around being a tour guide and having fun. Yeah. And so, I had to learn everything as I went, and that was, I guess you learn a lot when you're hands-on doing things, especially in a small business. And, the last few years was really going really well, but we had a lot of tough years in between as well. Yeah. And, we put one business into liquidation. We did all sorts of things. We lost a fortune on some and made lots of money on others. And it's just a learning journey.
Yeah. And so what sort of thing do you take out of that? Like, putting a business through liquidation, how you lick your wounds and keep going. What do you learn from that?
Pretty well. You learn you don't want to do that again. And you just learn which decisions to make, the smart decisions, to focus on the right things at the right time, and not say yes to every opportunity. Because when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. So it's really important to just focus on the right things. Yeah. Which
isn't necessarily always straightforward to begin with.
No.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
It is a very wonderful thing, yeah.
Okay, so then the other aspect of that original comment that I wanted to talk about more was your communication internally, sharing that vision with your team. How do you go about that? Is that something you do regularly? What's your approach to that?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously we have staff meetings like most businesses do, and the beginning of our staff meeting is always, what's our BHAG? What's our Big Hairy Audacious Goal? Yeah. Which is, and everyone can recite that off. They know exactly where we're going. They know exactly where to tell people where we're going as a business. The they know what to say of what we do. And so that's reminded every single meeting, probably, which is weekly.
Yeah.
So at least, everyone's aware of where we're going and where we're trying to go.
You know, understanding business models, you know, and many small business owners who start businesses don't have formal business training. No. You know, like, so where's the model?
I think there's a different model for every industry, really, and it depends what you're going into it for. If you want to go into a business just to make money, go and sell conveyor belts or something that you can just repeat, you know. But if you want to do something that you really, really love, then you might find it's more of a lifestyle than it is a business. So just knowing what you really, really want, what you want out of it, what your end game is, and also I think knowing how you're going to get out of the business later on. You need to think about that before you even start. So, because otherwise, you know, how are you going to be able to sell it? What are you going to do at the end when you change your mind? And we'll change our minds and move on to new things. So
I'm really interested in understanding, with the two different businesses being quite different, do you use different communication strategies for both?
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell me about
Definitely.
that?
So we have like an annual content planner, and obviously we have marketing plans that we roll out. You know, our ideal customer for a surf school is totally different than what it is for a team building activity. And we also have a Segway business up in the Blue Mountains as well, and that customer is totally different again. So it's, you know, we've done a lot of work just working out who our ideal customer is, and so we could write that material based on that person. Well, so we try and put a name on it,
So you've really drilled down into that persona, so you know them quite well.
That's right. So we've done that probably, you know, for our surf school, we probably have a couple of personas we write towards. You know, one might be a mum with some kids, you know, so the kids are going surfing, and then the others will be some, 20 to 30-year-olds who are wanting to do their bucket list and go surfing and things like that. So there's a few different markets that we, tailor that communication towards.
And do you use different communication channels for the different businesses? Yeah,
so the surf school, I think, you know, between Instagram and Facebook are still good. We haven't explored much in Snapchat. I think that's a whole nother world to play with. But also YouTube's been good for our surf school as well. So we did a series of how-to videos and things like that, which create some great engagement. I guess being a visual, tourism-y, sporty surfing activity, it's very, you know, I guess that visual is really important. Whereas with the team building activities, you know, probably some LinkedIn posts, and we still use Facebook for that as well. And that's more of, not as much visual, more, I guess, information. Yeah.
So it's more corporate sort of tailor.
Much more corporate.
And do you think, like, those personas, do you think it's really important to understand both who they are and then where they are? That's been really valuable for your business? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, for our surf school, we've been around a long time, and we've drilled it down more than we have for our team building. But for the surf school, definitely, like, we know probably which suburbs they're living in, what sort of car they'll drive, what charity they would give to, what music they would probably listen to, all those sorts of things.
So you've really built up an intimate profile of them. Yeah. And what impact do you think that has when you're then communicating with them? Well,
you know, that's probably the language that you want to use, and I guess, what might inspire them to do business with you and come and, you know, have fun, bring the kids surfing or whatever. So you sort of can tailor that a bit better. Yeah.
Great. And are you sharing stories in amongst your content, you know, stories of people that have surfed or surfing stories? Is that something that you utilise a lot in your communication?
Yeah, we have done a bit of that, and we'll probably do more. We've got a plan coming up very shortly just to do interviews with all the surf coaches about who they are and why they love doing what they're doing and things like that. So we're trying to build that storytelling more into our marketing. Yes, but, you know, it's a long process, and again, resources and being able to roll it out is the tricky part.
Yeah, and, you know, talking about that resources and, you know, the juggling and making decisions, you know, how do you go about evaluating that as a small business?
How much money you've got, how much output you can get out of something, you know. So we've got a team of like 8 full-time in the Philippines now that are part of our business too. So they're doing a lot of search engine optimization over there. We've got a full-time marketing manager over there, and then we have assistants. So we've had to look for the dollar that we could spend here and the output. We've had to look both ways of how can we get the most output. And the direct result has been, you know, we've been in the fastest growing South Australian companies for the last 4 years in a row across all industries in the top 20. So they have enabled us to grow and employ more Aussies, which is really cool.
And at what point did you make that decision to include that? Like, and how did you go through that process?
Yeah, I had a few fails, and we started using outsourcing websites, things like that, just for general little projects and things. So we tried that for a little while, but they were too ad hoc, and we really wanted people on our team every day that we could communicate with, and that's when we started going through recruitment people in the Philippines.
So, and would you have any advice for businesses considering that?
Yeah, just have a very clear job description and all the tasks that you want them to do, and make sure that's very, very clear, and processes for everything, making sure or even they can help you write them, but making sure you've got good processes, it's all very clear, and making sure you communicate with them like they're a member of your team, and everyday communication, I suppose, important, just like you will with any other staff member, because they want to be part of the business.
And with that sales process, making sure you had those good sales people, how did you do that, and what sort of training have you provided? How do you build up a really strong sales team?
Sure. So we developed, I guess, a sales playbook. So we have probably about 40 or 50 pages, talking about personality types, what language they like to use, if they're fast at making decisions, slow at making decisions, how you approach it. We've got a framework for phone calls of how to work through step by step the questions to ask, and then lots of product training. But yeah, we've got a great playbook that spells it all out step by step for the sales guys, because unless they are going to follow the system, which is tried and tested, it's not going to work. So yeah, it's really important to have the systems really strong. And
so that network that you've built and developed, how important is that throughout your business journey? Yeah, I thought networks can send you referrals and business. I think we probably got introduced by someone who said, "Have you heard of Luke?" And that's just through the network of being in that industry for a long time. And it's really, really important, because it's that sharing and promoting of each other is really important. On the Fleurieu Peninsula where we are, I'm very aware that for my little business to be successful, my town needs to be successful. For my town to be successful, then the region needs to be successful. For the region, the state, and then for the state to be successful, the whole country has to be successful. So I'm very aware of how we all need to work together to be all successful, and I think that's really important to recognise. All right, well, thank you so much for sharing your tips and information with us today. In conclusion though, Luke, can you share with me your Be The Drop tip, and that's your top tip for communication that connects? Be authentic, and be very clear and know the message that you want to deliver to the world. That's probably the most important. Good. And make sure your whole team knows it too. Of course. Of course. Yeah, good. Thank you so much. No worries, thank you.